The rain came down hard that evening, drumming against the parched land as if heaven itself wanted to wash away months of dust and silence. The prairie was a sea of gray and gold, the smell of wet earth rising into the air. Thunder rolled low across the sky, chasing the lone rider who pressed on despite the storm. His name was Colt McGraw, a cowboy known across the valley for his strength, his silence, and the way he carried heartbreak like it was a badge. He rode for the ranch, his hat pulled low, his coat soaked through, and his thoughts tangled in a storm fiercer than the one above. The rain blurred his vision, but not enough to hide the ache that had settled in his eyes long before the clouds rolled in. He wasn't riding home. He was running from something he couldn't name, maybe from the loneliness that had followed him like a shadow since the war, or maybe from the empty house that used to echo with laughter that wasn't there anymore. The horse slipped on the muddy trail, and before Colt could pull back on the reins, the beast went down hard, sending him flying into the soaked earth. The sound of the fall was swallowed by thunder, and then there was nothing but the rain. From across the field, someone saw him fall. Clara Bennett had been closing the shutters of her small homestead when she caught the flash of movement through the storm. Her heart jumped before her body did. Without thinking, she pulled on her coat and ran into the rain. The mud clung to her boots. The wind whipped her braids across her face. But she didn't stop, not when she saw the horse limping away, not when she spotted the man lying still in the dirt. She fell to her knees beside him, her trembling hands brushing his soaked hair from his forehead. "Hey," she whispered. "Hey, cowboy, can you hear me?" His eyelids fluttered, his breathing shallow. The storm had no mercy, but Clara did. She hooked her arms under his shoulders, trying to lift him. He was heavy, his weight pulling her down, but determination burned through her like fire. "Come on," she muttered, her voice breaking between gasps. "You're not dying out here, not tonight." Somehow, through sheer will and the strength only desperation gives, she managed to get him up, half dragging, half carrying him toward the small light in her cabin window. Each step was a battle, each breath a prayer. When they finally stumbled through her door, both collapsed in a heap on the wooden floor. The rain beat against the roof as if cheering her on. She rolled him onto a blanket, stripped off his soaked coat, and covered him with another. His face was pale under the lamplight, his jaw cut and bruised, his hand clutching a silver locket she hadn't noticed before. She set it aside gently, then pressed a wet cloth to his forehead. "You're safe," she whispered, though she wasn't sure he could hear her. "You're safe now." So was her, sitting by the fire, her hair dripping, her coat drying by the flames. "You're awake," she said softly, turning toward him with a smile that outshone the storm. "You fell off your horse. You're lucky I saw you." He stared at her for a long moment, as if trying to decide whether she was real or some angel the rain had sent. "You shouldn't have gone out there," he croaked. "Could have gotten yourself hurt." She smirked, shaking her head. "Well, cowboy, I wasn't about to let a fool like you drown in the mud." Something in her tone, half gentle, half fire, made him almost smile. In the days that followed, the rain didn't stop, and neither did she. She tended his wounds, fed his horse, and brought him back to life in ways she didn't realize. Every morning Colt tried to leave, and every morning his bruised ribs and her stubborn stare kept him there. She learned he'd lost his brother in the war, his family's ranch to debt, and his heart to the kind of loneliness no whiskey could cure. She told him about her own losses, the father who never came back from the mines, the mother who died when the world still felt cruel. They shared silence more than words, but it was the kind that healed instead of hurt. On the fourth day, the clouds broke, and sunlight poured through the window like a promise. Colt stood at the door, hat in hand, watching the fields steam under the morning light. "I should go," he said quietly. Clara looked at him, her heart tightening. "You don't have to." He turned to her then, really looked at her, and something unspoken passed between them, something that didn't need words. He reached for her hand, rough fingers brushing against hers. "You saved me," he murmured. "Maybe it's time I stop running." That night, they stood outside together, the stars finally showing after the storm. The air was clean, cool, and full of the scent of new earth. Colt's horse grazed nearby, the same creature that had thrown him down, now calm and steady. Clara leaned against the fence, her eyes reflecting the sky. "Funny thing," she said, "how sometimes the fall is what brings people together." Colt smiled, a rare, soft smile that lit up his weathered face. "Reckon you're right," he replied. "Guess I fell for more than just the mud." She laughed then, the sound bright as morning, and in that laugh he found the home he'd been searching for. As days turned into weeks, the prairie greened again. Colt stayed, helping around her homestead, fixing fences and mending roofs. But more than that, he mended her heart and she his. When neighbors passed by and asked if the cowboy was just visiting, Clara would smile and glance toward the barn where he worked, singing low under his breath. "No," she'd say, "he's home now." And maybe that was all they ever needed, not grand words, not promises, just the quiet truth that sometimes love doesn't come riding in. It falls in the mud beside you, waiting to be lifted up and never let go.